Hello, lunchtime people, if you're around on Instagram at this time of day. I'm here because I'm hoping to see the lovely Nicola coming onto my feed at some point. So if anyone saw my post earlier, I'm talking to Nicola, who is a wonderful dietitian, nutritionist, who specialises and has specialised as a clinician in working in diabetes clinics. She specialises, so I'm just looking to see if Nicola's coming up, in belly fat and the importance of nutrition in respect to that and how nutrition works. And I think she's enlightened me to a number of things that are really interesting. And so we're going to have a chat about that, particularly at this time of year. You know, because there are so many pitfalls, aren't there, that we can fall into. And this, I think, comes from perhaps a way of thinking about all of our nutrition in a way that is perhaps, a bit old hat. And I know I'm guilty of falling into that trap. There she is. I'm just going to see if I can click on Nicola. Bear with me for a sec, guys. You request. Go live. Hopefully does that funny little kind of waiting game. Nicola's gonna come in any second now. Yay, she's there. And this is when, hi Nicola, are you okay?
Yes, good afternoon. I'm very well, thank you.
This is when I have to adjust my thing because you're shoved into the top corner of the of your phone. Maybe if I go from that's all right, isn't it? How are you, my lovely?
Very well, thank you.
Good.
I can't believe Christmas is almost here. I'm not really ready, to be honest.
No, me neither. No, I'm kind of just going, oh, is it really happening now? Is it really? Does it have to? But we're going to go and pick up a tree tomorrow, so that will make me hopefully feel a bit more Christmassy.
Absolutely, that's nice.
Yeah, so thank you for coming on here. We're going to talk about two things mainly. One is just like in relation to Christmas, a few things and maybe a few tips that you can give people, but also to talk about your workshop that you're doing next week. Which I'm going to run a little competition for everybody. So if anyone's interested in attending that, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Then we'll do a little competition so people can join that for free, which will be great if anyone's interested. But what I really wanted to talk to you about, because I've started, as you know, this thing called Fitness, and I'm really kind of a big believer that we have to do things, in little steps, and that I know myself, it's like you're turning this big old wheel that you need to just gradually change. And I know I have been affected by this, and I think a lot of people who are going through that perimenopausal, menopausal stage, maybe postnatal as well, we've been brought up on a diet and fitness industry which is very weight loss centered and very image based, and old habits die hard, and it's really hard to get ourselves away from that thinking pattern, even though we know, and I know this, even though we know that it's so not about that. And for me, kind of growing up in the fitness industry, everything has been so image conscious all the way. So it's really hard to actually go, do you know what? It doesn't matter about how you look. It really doesn't matter, because we've just been indoctrinated into this for such a long time. And I'm gradually, working my way out of that, and I feel I'm in a really positive place about that. And diet has been something that I've had to, or nutrition has been something that I've had to really work on, because, for example, for me, as somebody that's always been incredibly active, it hasn't been about the weight. It's just about when to eat, how, so that I can live the lifestyle that I do. And I have just buffeted my way through carbs. That's what I've done for a large proportion of my life. And I think that a lot of people have done that traditionally, and it's really hard to kind of move yourself away from that and change your thinking on that. And I know that our diet industry has very much been centered around low calorie, low fat diets, low calorie, and calorie in, calorie out, burning calories. Exercise is used as a way of burning calories. And all of this, you know, we now know is just wrong. It's just not the way we should be doing things. So when it comes to Christmas, I'm getting round to it. When it comes to Christmas, you know, it's really hard to change that mentality of, well, I know I need to exercise, but I don't have a lot of time. But maybe if I just do, I eat a load of, you know, I go to a party, or I eat this loads of really kind of carby meals that are really dense in calories, really rich foods, lots of sugars, all that kind of stuff. But if I go and exercise the next day and I try and burn it off, everything will be okay. And then, you know, you go through this cycle of doing that, or you just give up on the exercise, because let's face it, at this time of year, it's so busy anyway. But you think, oh, never mind, I'll tackle that in January. So it doesn't matter. And we do it every year, year in, year out. We go, oh, never mind, I'll just go for it. I just, you know, that effort mentality, because it'll be fine and I'll just do something about it in January. Do you think, in your professional opinion, that's okay? Is it all right to go F it for 2 weeks? Does that affect us long term? And is there an issue with that?
Well, unfortunately, there is an issue with it, which is that it affects first of all, our blood sugar most immediately.
Yeah.
And that effect is not just felt, you know, a few hours after the meal, but it can carry on for the rest of the week, in fact. So metabolically, it's not a healthy way to treat the body. But from a psychological point of view, I think that, you know, this approach to food is not healthy, because it's like we're swinging from either indulging almost, if we're honest, as a numbing agent to, you know, what else is going on around us in our lives, or sort of as a reward for life's pain, or whatever we've been going through. And then swinging to the other end of the pendulum, which is a deprivation mindset. And that doesn't help either, because eventually, you know, when you deprive yourself, your mind and your body will rebel. So then you just keep swinging from one end of the pendulum to the other. And that is not the way to, you know, build a healthy body, or a healthy relationship with food. Food in reality is what our bodies rely on, and it affects so much more than our weight. So what we eat will affect our mood. I mean, there's a whole field now of nutritional psychology, or nutrition, the relationship, looking at the relationship between nutrition and mood. And there is evidence that specific things that we eat can have really fast impact on how we feel mentally. And it also affects the way we feel energetically, you know, how much energy we have. And it affects the health of our skin, our hair, our nails, our bones. So on the one hand, you could, you know, my clients primarily come to me for weight loss, but and they go away having lost weight, but the weight is really a symptom of other things that are going on inside the body. It's never the reason for the other problems. It's just a symptom of something else that is often the food that we're eating.
And that psychology side is so fascinating, isn't it? Because I think, you know, I know that from my work that it's the mind is so powerful in all of this. And let's keeping on this theme of Christmas, because you mentioned two things there. There was that, like, the immediate effect. So I just want to go back on that, because I think that's really interesting. And you're saying that if you have one blowout meal And I just want to make a point here, because I'm so not into killjoy. You know, I really want people to enjoy their Christmas. But I think what you're saying is really interesting, because this Christmas, we want to enjoy it more than any other, don't we? Because of what we've all been through. And that psychologically is that we're all just ready to have a real amazing Christmas. But you just said something really interesting. You said that the effects of, say you've had, I don't know, let's say Christmas meal, for example, Christmas Day, and we've, you know, gone overboard on everything, because we do, because we can, because it's Christmas, because we like to. We've got the effort mentality, but it's not just about that. It's Christmas, you know. So what are, just take me through what happens to the body after that meal.
Sure. Well, first of all, I should preface it by saying this is so individual.
Yeah.
And some people have more sensitivity to some foods than others. So you can get two people eating exactly the same meal and they'll metabolically have very different reactions. However, a lot of people who, you know, let's say women, which is some of your audience, are women going through around the time of the menopause. And around that time, it has been shown that women become less insulin sensitive, which means they basically have a bit more trouble dealing with sugar in the blood. So let's say they eat a meal where they have the attitude, oh, F it, I'm just going to eat all the bad stuff today. And then I'm going to start again on January the 1st being good. So I can just eat as much as I might as well eat all the bad stuff now while I still can. So you can think of it, some people explain it this way. It's as if you're in the West End on a rainy night and you're looking for a taxi home. And suddenly a concert or a theatre finishes and the pavement is swarmed with people who've just come out of this theatre production. And normally you have sort of, you know, taxis driving around and they can cope with picking up people, you know, and there's enough supply and demand is equal. But suddenly you're looking for a taxi, and because of this swarm of people that have come out, you know, the taxis can't manage, there aren't enough. And it's similar in our body in the sense that we have a certain amount of insulin, and the job of insulin is to be this taxi and take the sugar out of the blood and shuttle it home to the cells where it's stored. And if you eat a normal meal with a mix of different foods, they contain a mixture of protein, of fat, of fiber, and of starch. And the amount of glucose that's released is, you know, a trickle, and the taxis, the insulin, can handle it. But if you're suddenly eating, you know, all the sweets, all the Yorkshire puddings, all the stuffing, just more than you normally would, then the blood is flooded with glucose. And the body needs to get rid of that glucose out of the blood, because it's absolutely crucial that it maintains glucose in the blood in strict limits. So the insulin is overwhelmed. There's not enough insulin to deal with all this flood of glucose. So the pancreas releases more insulin and more insulin. And so all the troops of the insulin are sent over. They clear up there's enough finally to get the glucose. They clear it up. But then, you know, it's not a precise thing. And so you end up with some of these taxis, if you like, who've all been sent to this site where the theatre let out. They're empty because now we've had enough taxis to pick up all the people, no more people there, but there are some empty taxis around. So still there's insulin waiting to be used. And so then it goes to the blood, which is now it's got the correct amount of glucose in it. And the insulin floating around just does what it's meant to do. It picks up some of this glucose. So then the sugar in the blood goes down, and you have too low blood sugar. And that gives you craving. You then have a craving for more starch, something that's going to raise the sugar in the blood again. That's a natural biological reaction to having too low sugar.
Yeah.
And it also can make you hangry. You know that
Yeah.
expression? It can make you
Yeah.
grumpy. It can
Yeah.
make you, it basically makes you feel rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So
it's that, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because it's that feeling when you wake up and you feel really hungry,
mhm,
yet you've eaten masses the day before. And that's what it is, isn't it? And it encourages
absolutely.
you to then eat again
Mhm.
in the same way the next day. And we've got to break the cycle, really, haven't we? And I think it's really interesting that if you then tie that into what you were saying about the psychological effects of this kind of yo-yoing effect, it really isn't a good place to be. And I know it's something I've had to learn the hard way over the years. And I've always had exercise on my side because we know exercise really helps. I put this post up the other day about, if you do go and have a big meal, to then go for a lovely long walk afterwards, because we know that exercise can really, really help to steady everything out,
Mhm.
and metabolically it just makes things better. But what else, if we want to enjoy our Christmas,
Mm.
but what are your top tips, and how can we help to even out the keel and stop these blood sugar drops and lows and highs?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I mean, regarding exercise, there are two ways that exercise can help. Um, One is if you do a proper workout before a meal. That's really helpful because, a workout where you're using your muscles and you're building your muscles, that means that when you go to eat your meal, the muscles will suck up the glucose without the need for insulin. So that's already giving you a head start if you do a workout sometime that day before Christmas meal.
Yeah.
Um, and then, like you pointed out, a walk after a meal. Obviously, you're not going to go and do a heavy workout with a full stomach and you don't feel like it. But a walk, even a short walk, is something that will help bring that blood sugar down because you're still using those muscles to walk and they will suck up some of the glucose without the need for insulin. So that's two ways of using exercise that will help. And regarding the food itself, I'm not suggesting that you don't enjoy yourself. It's just not having this mentality of, oh, I better get it all in now because then I'm going to be good once the holidays are over.
Mm.
Because each meal is an opportunity to feed our bodies the food that are going to make us feel great. And so actually, if you want to enjoy your holiday and be able to feel relaxed and happy and somewhat energetic, then you can eat in a way that's going to promote that. And so seeing each meal as an opportunity to put things on your plate that will make you feel great is the way that I look at it. And I have a system which I call Thrive with Five. And there are 5 elements that you want to think about at each meal: color,
Yeah.
calm, protein, fat, and fiber. And color is important because it brings so many antioxidants and plant chemicals to the meal, and they've just shown to be helpful in so many ways, for our skin, for our hair, for our immune system. And this time more than ever, this is the time of year where we are more vulnerable to getting ill, so it's important to make sure that we're in sort of top condition. Calm, because we can't digest or absorb nutrients in a non-calm state. We need the rest and digest nervous system to kick in. And if we're having arguments, then that doesn't really help. If we're feeling stressed, that doesn't help. So actually enjoying the meal and just not worrying so much about, oh, am I eating the right or the wrong thing? There's something to be said for just enjoying the meal without overthinking it. And that's where calm comes in as well. And quite often, some families say grace, which is a really nice traditional sort of way of actually calming down before a meal. But if you're not religious, you can just do a couple of deep breaths is all it takes that can really help. And then protein is a really keystone part of anyone who wants to lose weight, as well as women and men as we get older, because muscle loss happens at a rate of, is it 1% every year? And after, I think, age 35 or something. And so it's important to make sure that when you're losing weight, you're not losing muscle. So you want to make sure that you get adequate protein at every meal, and also that the awareness that protein actually fills you up, and it's the most it requires the largest amount of calories to digest, actually, of all the macronutrients. So then we have healthy fat, which is essential for so many things, but at this time of year, it's important for a lot of the immune boosting micronutrients like vitamin A and vitamin D. Those are fat soluble nutrients. And if you don't have sources of healthy fat each meal, then you're not going to be able to absorb those nutrients from your vegetables.
And that's just talking about healthy fats. Could that be like on your Christmas dinner, for example? You know, does it make a difference if you roast your potatoes in olive oil as opposed to duck fat? You know, does that make a difference?
You know, that's a very good question. And the answer is it's individual. And often it's genetic. So some people are more susceptible, or they react badly to saturated fats. So duck fat is a saturated fat. And so for those people that are susceptible to having high triglycerides, for example, there's a way of checking whether you are one of those people. You have to have a DNA test, and you know whether you're susceptible to, whether you're sensitive to saturated fat.
Interesting.
What is likely to make a difference, it's appearing now, is what that duck is fed on, which obviously makes sense if you think about it. If it's a battery raised, you know, corn-fed, grain-fed duck, versus if it's a duck that's able to be out there roaming freely, eating grubs and whatever it's meant to be eating, that's going to make a difference. And you know, olive oil also, it depends on the how high you have your oven. If you have it over 180 degrees, then the olive oil might start to degrade and become less healthy.
Interesting. So you have to slow roast your potatoes. I don't know if you can do that. Can you? Yes, you can, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's really, but it's really interesting, isn't it? Because that's just like one little thing. And I think this goes back to, you know, there are so many things, you know, and when I said we were going to do this, you were like, well, God, how long is a piece of string? There's so many aspects to this, you know, and there are so many aspects to our Christmas. But I think if we can just take one thing at a time and just think, well, I'm going to do that and I'm going to make that change. And yeah, I mean, if we can get our DNA checked or whatever and find out whether goose fat or whatever, you know, that's a very specific thing. But it's worth doing, isn't it? Because all of these little things lead to bigger things. And I think it's really important that we just, you know, in what you've done today, you said some things today that I didn't know. And hopefully anyone that's watching this will learn something new. And we just got to keep learning and just keep on making those little changes and change that attitude, that effort attitude, where we just, and then think, oh, well, we'll just solve it all at Christmas, in the new year, because it doesn't help us long term. And if we can, even this Christmas, just start to make some little changes. And the protein is really key, isn't it, Nicola?
And then one other thing I'd just like to say is that it's Christmas, right? Christmas is about celebrating. Of course, there's going to be delicious desserts. So do I expect you not to eat them? No. But the point is that if you're filling your plate with these Thrive with 5 items, foods, then your body will be better able to handle the sugar that you do throw at it, and the starches that you do throw at it. And another key to that is fiber. So if you have enough of these other foods, they slow down the release of glucose into the blood. So it's about always knowing how to eat the indulgences when you do eat them, and not to eat them on an empty stomach, but to eat them with these other supportive foods,
Yes.
and including protein.
So basically, don't eat the chocolates or the mince pies on their own. If you're going to have them after you've had a meal.
Absolutely.
And can you go through your Thrive with Five again? Because I just think this is so important. I love it as well.
Sure.
You've got to copyright this.
It's colour.
Yeah.
So think of mixture of vegetables in all different colours. Calm.
Yeah.
Protein.
Yeah.
Healthy fat.
Yeah.
And fibre.
Yeah. Brilliant. I just think that, and if you're ensuring you're getting those in every meal time, and it kind of also, should we be avoiding snacks? Could we, if is that an issue if we're having kind of just snacks that are on their own, or is that okay if it's before a meal?
It again, it depends why you're eating the snack. So if you're hungry, you know, if for some reason you didn't have a big enough breakfast, and you know you've got lunch in a while but you're just starving, then yes, you can have a snack. That's the right time to have a snack, to just tide you over until the meal time. But even then, don't just have even a piece of fruit, right? A piece of fruit on its own is going to raise your blood sugar. So have it with, think of Thrive with Five. Protein, fat and fibre will then slow the release of that fructose and glucose from the fruit into the bloodstream. So before your slice of, or half an apple, have a handful of almonds.
So just nuts, that provides all of those things, doesn't it? And then breathe for you calm.
Yeah, exactly. And being hungry.
Oh, Nicola, that's really helpful. Thank you. It's really, really interesting. And I think if we can just take on just a few of these little things and enjoy our Christmas, but with that in our mindset, we start to realize that we can actually do these things, and it is actually easy. We think of it as really hard, but just little changes. Now you're going to do a workshop, which is going to be, guys, it's going to be advertised all through my website. If you go to my website, you can book onto this workshop. It is next Wednesday at 12. I put it at 12:15, Nicola, just so you know. I thought I'd plump in the middle because we said either 12 or 12:30. I've gone for 12:15. And Nicola's going to be talking. Well, you let everyone know what you're going to be talking about on the workshop.
So yeah, we're going to just take more of a deep dive into some of these areas that we raised today, specifically looking at protein and carbohydrate, what foods really count as these macronutrients, and how much should we be having, and when. Really, I'm going to open it up to some questions as well, so hopefully make it interactive, but really taking a bit more of a deep dive into those areas, which is a lot of where people kind of fall down or have a lack of knowledge about what these foods really are.
Yeah, and if anyone can join us live, you know, I really would recommend it, because obviously you then get the opportunity to ask Nicola questions. I'll be there as well, piping up, I'm sure. And the cost of the workshop, it's at 12:15 next Wednesday. You could do it in your lunch hour. It is around an hour in length, although questions, if we do get questions, we may go over a little bit. But you can also watch it at any time, so it'll be available, and it's available to you for life. So you've got it for life. The cost of the workshop is £35. Anybody who is already a member of mine, you can buy it as a part of your membership. So you can use your current credits on your membership. But also, guys, I'm going to do it as do a little competition. So what you've got to do is you have to follow Nicola and I. You have to make sure you follow us both. You then put yourself and a friend's name into the comments below this post. So make sure you put your name and you tag a friend. And if you do that, I will then put your name into a raffle, and I'll pull out 2 names of people who will get the workshop for free. And anyone that does join, even if you pay your £35, just so you know, you can also, for the new year, you can get £35 off any package that you book with me. So essentially you could get it for nothing if you then wanted to carry on and do sessions with me afterwards. Or maybe Nicola, I don't know if you want to do something similar as well. So lots of opportunities there for you. So just a reminder, so if you need to follow Nicola and myself, and then you need to tag yourself and a friend into the comments below this. And then if you want to book directly onto the workshop, if you click onto, or if you just go to janewaite.com, I will be putting on the front page a direct link to the workshop. It's not up there yet, but I'm going to do it as soon as this is finished. Or you can just go to my website, go to the timetable for my website, and you'll see Nicola's workshop in there. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. And thank you, Nicola. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. And yeah, so thank you. It's really, really interesting. And I think it's so important for us to kind of take on all these things with an element of joy about it. And I love your Thrive with 5, because I think it's so positive. So hopefully that's been useful for everybody, and I'll see you next Wednesday. And guys, I hope I'll see some of you. We'll see some of you next Wednesday as well. Alrighty. Right. Take care, Nicola.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure being here.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.